Hi, dudes and dames, and welcome. So, I'm trying out this new, more relaxed format, and if you're not into that sort, it might not be a thing. Let me know in the comments. They went and updated my editing software, and now I gotta find out the new quirks and derps in that crap thing, which is actually totally cool, and which have a fancy ass dark interface. So I'm completely on board. Even though the fucker screwed me, so I had to fix the gender ideology is child abuse in a freaking terminal. Oh, and I went and got myself a new microphone. Yeah. I thought this would be as good a time as any to share a couple of thoughts I've had on the tendency many have of applying human attributes to organizations and corporations. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong and people shouldn't do it at all. I'm just saying I want to share some thoughts I had on the subject. I would guess we assume attributes like empathy and consideration and moral to entities controlled by humans because they are exactly that, controlled by humans. It could, however, to an extent, if not completely, cloud or twist one's perception of said entity. I'll give a couple of examples. As individuals, most people are intelligent, sensible, and considerate persons. But in a mob or group, this intelligence and consideration goes right out the fucking window. Unless people are aware and settle each other down, things will most often escalate and eventually go off the road. Of course, one good example I can't remember where or when happened. But in this European city, they had won a soccer game or league. They were completely ecstatic, and things took a turn for the worst when a couple of cars were overturned and some signs were wrecked, and within a couple of hours this giant party, and it was a giant party, people were ecstatic. It had escalated to a full-blown riot. They had won the game, they were happy, all of them. And you can see clearly on the pictures, it just escalates completely out of control. When I look back at things, most of the things I have done that have been arguable have been in the company of others, in some sort of brain fart. Maybe not to impress, maybe it was just out of short-sightedness. I don't know. Sometimes we just do things because at the moment it seemed like a good idea. But it wasn't. That is one side. Another is the actual workings of organizations and corporations these for the most part doesn't allow their employees to divert that much from the guidelines, and often they are economically rewarded or punished for a certain outcome. Most often in the corporate structure, people are hired specifically not to apply these attributes in their work, to ensure that the outcome for the shareholders keep within guidelines. This example might be a touchy one to bring up right now, and don't you go all harambe on my ass here. I'm just making a point, just take that away from it. I'm not making any excuses for any wrongdoings, I'm just pointing out the aspect to be applied anywhere. Let's say a cop who spent most of his life in law enforcement. He's got a wife, a couple of rugrats, a dog named Lincoln, and a huge mortgage on the house. Wife has a car, and kids go to soccer practice and whatever. College, oh my god. One day he walks in on a couple of colleagues roughing up a suspect. Now, as we agree, that is of course completely unacceptable and should be stopped and reported immediately. In doing so, this will definitely create mistrust between him and colleagues. Alone this could be enough to expel him completely from the group. His family and him could even be attached to the colleagues and their family, as often happens in tight groups. Worst case scenario, it's not just the cost of the job, but maybe several appreciated relationships or the whole family situation. Let's be honest here, snitches get sacked. They aren't taken lightly anywhere. And to continue up the ranks, the chief, who not only have the colleagues to consider, also have a budget to balance. What the reports and statistics reflects is what next year's budget is going to look like. Cuts could mean firing not only likely wanted colleagues, but a restriction to the manpower that might be expected needed for the coming year, which in turn could result in a drop in service to the people. It is often seen that people project their values and moral onto organizations and corporations, believing that they will eventually do the right thing, that they will listen to the people, and through consideration at least come to the conclusion they need to have at least some moral and empathy in order to keep people around. Now, that is a big assumption to make, in my opinion. It all really depends on, first of all, how many customers are really gonna give a fuck, and second of all, what is the actual goal of the corporation? I mean, if the goal is data mining, then cost is not an aspect. In my opinion, this idea that these entities have to treat you as an individual human being with rights is, to be honest, baffling. No one, and I mean no one, is anything but a number in a corporation. And sometimes, even in large groups, still a drop in the ocean. And that is impossible to change. The numbers again speak louder than words to a board or the shareholders. It's the exact same reason. There's money for bankers and business in broken families. It is no longer one household containing one family. It's two households containing two families. A lot higher income. Then there's all the social benefits of broken families to a banker or high-end business owner. Often it results in offspring, which are likely not to succeed, but end up occupied fighting various social issues instead. With the tendency to spend money more recklessly, the few who are lucky to work cheap, and statistically the rest end on welfare. The state can't afford, which they have to borrow from the bankers. You get the point. Also, broken families are most likely to vote in the direction that would ensure them help from the governments. This predictability is extremely exploitable when thinking in high-end business and politics. Another thing I want to slide in on the topic on organizations, which we have seen so often the recent years. And one of the reasons I do not identify as anything but myself, and I'm wary of any organization or movement at all. Hijacking of movement and organizations have become more the rule than the exceptions these days. And from a side, these are misused by the corporations or institutions they are actually trying to fight. Most people remember the Occupy Wall Street movement. It did have legit targets and an effective direction in the beginning. And then well-founded people appeared in the discussion and things took a whole other direction and ended up nothing more than a joke. It's everywhere. Animal rights to humanitarian groups used to attack competition, or even state institutes, as seen in Ukraine, where Soros' money founded the rise of a anti-Russian movement who recently attacked the Russian embassy, among other. Soros again. Black Lives Matter had legit claims too in the beginning, until it got twisted by paid people from you-know-who. And on top of that, the black opportunist came, and in an attempt to grab sweet power and dough, maybe some sweet rims. Do I need to say anything else about them? I don't think so. I was actually digging in the YouTube dirt for a video I saw, which perfectly show how cold the people who do these infiltrations really are. But with a memory like a pasta strainer, I of course can't remember the title. It was Black Lives Matter representative which showed up for this meeting of very conservative African people whom did not accept among other gays. Well into the speech, the talk, this representative started yapping as they do, and she kept yapping all about how they agree on the various viewpoints and how much their movements were comparable and all of this shit. All until she mentioned the word acceptance, where the speaker interrupted her and asked what she exactly meant by acceptance. She of course had to tell the truth, and she meant gays and trans and lesbians, etc. And she was blatantly kicked out after that. Now, what was remarkable about this was afterwards he said to the gathering, "I'm happy this happened, so I can show to you what it looks like. This is how they push their own agenda in groups like ours. They do this all the time. You should be careful following them. We don't need them." It has been seen in anti-oil movements to attack legit projects which produce cheap oil and gas and employ local citizens in favor of existing oil deliverance, or worse even, in favor of green energy projects, which so far only have produced extremely high energy costs and extremely bad supply on a national level. Now, I'm not arguing against green energy here, but use it locally where it actually helps. Maybe even reduce the power bill. But the big projects paid for by tax money are just funneling money right down the drain, and it is ensuring less stable power supply. And for fuck's sake, who loves rolling blackouts? Oh yeah, the atheist community went upside down too. I'm not saying that this is happening in every case. I'm saying it happens for a fact. And it is extremely easy and cheap to do. And you tell me, if you're protecting your fortune and family dynasty and coming fortune, wouldn't you do it? My point is, assigning human attributes to entities not human could lead to a rather twisted impression and could cloud the objectivity needed to analyze things more correctly. I don't want this to come out all pessimistic, far from. What I want is to say, if we acknowledge these things, it could help to ensure a better structure in things to come. Another thing, changes can be brought on without movements. Movements, however, can run off a cliff before you even know you're falling with it. Individuals, on the other hand, are for the most intelligent. A lot of individuals are even stronger, for should one fail, there are the rest still standing strong to help. If you are that individual strong rock, helping those around you who deserve it become rocks of their own, you will soon have rock steady support unlike anyone else. Thanks for watching.